Greetings, everyone. This week has been particularly eventful for the European Union as it faces a significant economic challenge. As the United States prepared for Memorial Day weekend, former President Donald Trump announced a substantial policy shift. On Friday, May 23, 2025, he declared a 50% tariff on all imports from the European Union via social media. Indeed, a 50% tariff. This is not a minor adjustment, it is a significant economic disruption aimed directly at transatlantic trade. By Friday afternoon, this digital announcement had solidified into official US policy. The tariffs are scheduled to take effect on Sunday, June 1, 2025. That leaves just 9 days for businesses and governments to respond. This short notice period is akin to an economic earthquake. The timing, just before a long holiday weekend in the US, exacerbates the potential for economic disruption, limiting immediate coordinated responses from government offices. Announcing such a significant policy shift with minimal notice is, to say the least, audacious. The European Union, comprising 27 countries with complex economic interdependencies, has been given a notice period comparable to a surprise pop quiz. Welcome to the volatile landscape of international trade in 2025, where economic stability is increasingly elusive. So, what happens when someone throws a giant economic grenade into the delicate ecosystem of global markets? Well, predictably, things got a bit messy. The announcement of Trump's 50% tariff plan reportedly had, and I quote a delightful turn of phrase from RTE Investigates, a laxative effect on financial market traders on both sides of the Atlantic. Eurozone government bond yields took a sharp dive, which is market speak for investors are scared and running for the safest things they can find, like under their desks. However, while there was definite turbulence, the market reaction wasn't quite the full-scale, pants-wetting panic seen during some previous tariff-induced market meltdowns. This time, it seems, there was a sliver of, dare I say, preparedness, or perhaps just a weary resignation. The markets, it appears, have developed a certain understanding of the Trumpian weather patterns. The question now is whether this perceived pain threshold will kick in before things get truly catastrophic, or if this time the stakes are too high or the resolve too firm for a quick backtrack. Now let's try to delve into the mind palace of the man behind the tariff curtain. What exactly is Donald Trump hoping to achieve with this 50% sledgehammer approach to EU imports? According to the man himself, his reasoning is crystal clear, if a little direct. "I'm not looking for a deal," he declared, which is always a fantastic starting point for any negotiation. He continued, "I mean, we've set the deal. It's at 50%, but again, there's no tariff if they build their plant here. So it's less a negotiation and more of an ultimatum: transform your entire global manufacturing strategy to my liking or face the economic consequences." He did offer a tiny, almost microscopic olive branch, suggesting he might discuss a little bit of a delay if a company commits to building a manufacturing plant in the United States. The core of his argument seems to be a profound sense of grievance. He believes the EU hasn't treated the US properly, stating, "They banded together to take advantage of us." Trump also trotted out some familiar, albeit factually wobbly claims. Whether this lesson will be learned or if it will simply provoke an equally aggressive response remains the multi-trillion-dollar question. While Trump was busy delivering his ultimatums with the subtlety of a foghorn, his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was trying to offer a slightly more diplomatic spin. Earlier on that fateful Friday, Bessent told Fox News that the 50% tariff suggestion, remember this was before it became fixed policy, was actually a clever tactic. It was intended, he said, to speed up negotiations with the EU and force them to make a high-quality offer. So it's not a declaration of war, you see, it's just an aggressive form of encouragement. Bessent elaborated that the president believes EU proposals in ongoing trade talks simply haven't matched the quality of those from other trading partners. The problem with lighting fires, of course, is that they can spread. When it comes to international negotiations, particularly trade disputes, the European Union and the Trump administration have styles that are, shall we say, somewhat different. It's like comparing a meticulously choreographed ballet to a mosh pit at a heavy metal concert. The EU typically operates with what's known as its house style of diplomacy. This involves a concerted effort to avoid escalating tensions, to steer clear of megaphone diplomacy, shouting your demands from the rooftops or, say, a social media platform, and to generally remove emotion from the proceedings. This approach is all about process, precision, and patience. The EU likes to build consensus, to work through established channels, and to present a united, if sometimes slow-moving, front. On the other side of this diplomatic dance floor, you have the Trumpian Tango, loud, unpredictable, and designed to keep everyone off balance. The question is, can these two vastly different dance styles ever find a common rhythm, or are they doomed to just keep stepping on each other's toes? Section 6. Herding European cats. Why getting the EU to agree is a Herculean task. Now, part of the reason the EU prefers its methodical, step-by-step approach to negotiation is baked into its very DNA. Negotiating with the European Union is not like negotiating with a single country. It's more like trying to get a committee of 27 highly individualistic cats, each with its own agenda and preferred brand of tuna, to agree on where to take their collective afternoon nap. The EU is a confederal system, which means that while Brussels has significant powers, the 27 member states still hold a great deal of sovereignty and influence, especially when it comes to ratifying major deals. This inherent complexity makes rapid, sweeping trade agreements incredibly difficult to achieve, especially when faced with tight, externally imposed deadlines like Trump's 9-day tariff ultimatum. Each member state has its own economic interests, its own industries to protect, and its own domestic political pressures. The European Commission negotiates on behalf of the bloc, but it needs a mandate from the member states, and any final deal often requires their unanimous approval or the approval of national and sometimes regional parliaments. It's less like negotiating a deal and more like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that argues back. Section 7. The Great Transatlantic Tally. Whose surplus is it, anyway? At the heart of many trade disputes, including this latest flare-up between the US and the EU, lies a fundamental disagreement about numbers. Specifically, who is selling more to whom? The US, under Trump, has consistently pointed to a large trade deficit with the European Union as evidence of unfair treatment. According to the US figures, the EU enjoys a trade surplus in goods of around $250 billion. However, the European Union looks at the same economic relationship and sees a rather different picture. When you factor in services, the EU argues, the overall trade imbalance in their favor shrinks considerably, down to about $150 billion. Section 8, Bracing for Impact, a full-blown trade war, and your wallet. So, what happens if these massive tariffs actually go into effect on June 1st, and the EU decides it's not going to take this lying down? Well, buckle up, because we could be looking at a full-blown, no-holds-barred trade war. The most immediate and predictable consequence of the US imposing a 50% tariff on EU goods is that those goods will become significantly more expensive for American consumers and businesses. Think about it, that French wine, that German car, that Italian pasta, that Swedish flat-pack furniture that you swear at while assembling, all of it could see a massive price hike. And it's not just luxury items. The EU exports a vast range of products, including machinery, pharmaceuticals, and chemicals that are vital inputs for American industries. If those become 50% more expensive, US manufacturers will face higher costs, which they will either absorb, squeezing their profits, or more likely pass on to you, the consumer, in the form of higher prices for American-made goods too. The European Union is highly unlikely to just shrug and say, oh well, fair enough. They have already indicated they are ready to defend their interests, which in trade speak usually means one thing: retaliation. Section 9. Crisis as a catalyst. Can Trump's tariffs accidentally make the EU stronger? It's a bleak picture, isn't it? The looming threat of a trade war, rising prices, and international relations souring faster than milk left out in the sun. However, in every crisis, there's often an unexpected twist, a potential silver lining, however faint. One school of thought suggests that this aggressive tariff posture from the US, while painful in the short term, could inadvertently act as a catalyst for much-needed reforms within the European Union itself. It's the "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger" argument applied to continental economics. Some analysts suggest that one way for the EU to de-escalate the current tension is to help the US find ground which they can easily take and then declare victory. This is a classic diplomatic maneuver: give your opponent a face-saving way out. But beyond these immediate tactics, the pressure from these tariffs could force the EU to accelerate long-discussed internal economic reforms. For years, there have been calls for the EU to create a more dynamic and integrated single market, particularly in areas like financial services and capital markets.